You can have it best models, 3D models. You can have it excellent materials, but without lighting, there's absolutely nothing. You cannot, without good lighting, to create a good render. And that's why it is very important to understand how lighting works inside the Vue and what we're going to look in this video. The Vue have one of the best lighting that I ever saw. However, it's come with a price. Price is longer render, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult to work on a screen as you're working with this. In that case, almost all my workflow included working on the lighting as a last step before rendering. So let's look what we have in Vue. And we have two different lighting options. One, where we have it separate lighting elements, we can create it, and it can be as just a light bulb, it can be spotlight, it can be aerial light, it can be panel. And in some cases, if we look sun, it is also the object. It is visible light source. We can add more than one sun, and in some cases, you can also even just copy and paste and create another sunlight. But as you notice, if you create it and we'll put it next to our sun, let's put it one, you can see it does not render on a screen. And we have it our main source, and we'll put here. You can notice it is affecting. So the first sun, the main one, it's what we have visible, and we can manage how it's a preview in our screen. Another ones we created, it is just a distant light, and it's not bad if you want to control shadows or other elements. So let's go ahead and delete those lights. And as I said, environmental lights as bigger sun, this is another type of the sun or type of the light that affecting all scenery together. And access this, you can go to atmosphere editor, and right here you can have it sun, lights, clouds, which is also will affect how light distributed. Sky fog, it's light absorptions and also diffusion. We also have some other properties. Wind does not affecting to this, and many times in a still you maybe even want to disable this. We have additional effects like star, rainbows, eye rings. This is just visual effects. And other ones, environmental map. This is more HDRI lighting. It's image-based lighting. So we can create, like take image outside in real world and using here, or you can render with other applications and apply it as the lighting, reflection, or also illuminations, or just a background backdrop. So you have the multiple options you can do on this one. And of course the other ones options, the rain and snow, it just localize the particle effect. Beside have all of these different lightings, we also have different lighting models. Well, let's look on this. So right here you can see we have it photometrical spectra, and if we look down, we have it standard spectral, volumetric, and a standard. First model that was creating in a Vue, it was standard, and it's a very basic lighting model. Volumetric will calculate the rates is going and how they will absorb or the split. And a volumetric lighting, it's kind of nice if you want to create a very fast fog. So those ones is very fast rendering. If we're going up to change standard spectral, it was main render lighting for long time till after come photometric, that is based on real world data. So it's creating a little bit more natural look. However, if you work with photometric or standard, the standard will give you more vibrant, saturated colors, higher contrast, and photometric a little bit more light absorption type. So in some cases, if you work with illustrations, I would recommend to use it a standard spectral, and if you're using more as a with the animations movie or more photorealistic, then you're going with photometric. They also have it lighting models, which is have it standard. And you can see as we change, this is very basic model. You have it global ambience when it's calculated reflective lights. We have it ambient occlusion, which is actually reflective lights also can be calculated. Global illuminations to all of them. And of course, global radiosity, it's we're calculating heaviest engine. So it is going from the easiest to hardest, on your CPU. So it's meaning The standard will be the fastest render, and we can just create, for example, right here, standard. Let's create a sphere. Okay, woo, maybe it's too big sphere, yes. Well, we create sphere, we'll put it down here. There you go. And if you notice, our sun is behind, so let's put our sun a little bit on a side so we can absorb the shadows. And we're going to render. So I'm going to render, and a final, this is provide a good quality. It will work with translucity, transparency, reflection, all the stuff. We're going on a 6 for the test, 640 by 470. It's worked just fine. I want to remove information strip, and on the bottom I just display the strip for us what it was done. Just remove this one, click OK, and let's render. And you can see how fast it's rendering. Okay. I'm also going to disable after exposure. In a cameras, by the way, if you working and sometimes does not look as right or changing, it's probably after exposure is enabled. You can go on the main camera properties or any camera properties and just disable after exposure. I think it's like automatic camera, you know, when you take image. Okay, let's go ahead. Now we're going with global illuminations, and we'll go click render. You can see it's take a little bit longer, but it does not create any pre-pass on the lighting calculations. It just done with a bucketing render and straightforward. And notice right here we have a darker on the bottom. Lights is not necessarily work correctly in this case. Let's go ambient occlusion. Will now should have it a little bit more on reflective lighting. And you notice we have it pre-pass. So what is meaning we have it first calculations how the lighting wall is reflective everything, and after we have it final render. And here we have it a little bit better on the bottom. You can compare. Oops, let's go click OK. And you can see right here on the bottom. You see how it's changed? Because it was calculating how is the lighting is reflecting on this case. Okay, let's go ahead, select another one, global illuminations. And as we're going, it is will getting better and better, of course. Next, we'll click on render, pre-pass, pass again. And you don't see very much changing on these, but it does affecting calculations on all objects inside. So it will create a more complex scene. Definitely, you will see different. But right here, you can see just a little bit on the shadows, how it's changed, because it was calculating on global lighting. And it's more realistic. You can see this is definitely decay a little bit too fast on the shadows. And you know what, let's make it just a little bit bigger, like this. There you go. And you can see right in the shadow this before, and now you see it's calculating a little bit more realistic because it's calculate amount of lights. And of course, if we're going to global radiosity, let's click this one. This is will take the longest to render, but it will produce the best result because it start calculating reflective lighting. And then you see like this area, we have lighter. Well, probably the best way if we look how it's worked together with example a different color sub object. So let's go right here. We have it our cube, and we'll just put it cube next to our sphere, and let's change color on this. So I'm going to the basic, and I'll change to the red color. And even in preview, you can see how red already light is reflective. So let's go with the ambient occlusion first, and we'll go render this. And what's happening, you can see no effect from our reflective object, so nothing there happened. Okay, let's go now global illumination. Same as we're putting, it does calculating a little bit better on shadows because this is blocking some lighting, so it does work a little bit better. But again, no effect from our cube. And if we're going on velocity, you can see now we have a red light reflection. So this is the best lighting model you can have it because it does calculating not just a global ambient occlusion. It does not only calculate all global lighting, it's also calculating reflective color and reflective lighting. And it is will take a longer time because what's happening, these rays, if they're bouncing back and forth because same as this object affecting sphere, as our cube affecting sphere, sphere lighting affecting the cube. And this is ray, how it's calculating by ray, by transfer back and forward. It will have a specific amount of the time it can run. And after this, it just stopped, because otherwise it will go for infinity, which is bring very interesting point about our how we work in real life, because it is going to infinity in real life till it's particles totally absorbed, or electrons, photons totally absorbed by material, or it's dissipate. Anyway, it's a absorb probably anyway, proper right way to say. But here's we need to stop this for our calculations. And you can do this if you're going inside your render properties. To modify some of these properties, we need to go inside the render properties. And for this, we'll go right click on our render. We're going to user settings, so we enable all of the properties. And you notice right here we have it enable subrays, trace, cast, reflection, transparency stuff. If we click on edit, you'll notice maximum trace lays and also reflection level. Well, let me show you how it's work. So I'm going for now just delete this object. We'll create it 2 new objects. We'll create it one kind of like a wall. Let's go call it wall. So we'll create one wall. We'll put it just behind the camera straight. Run there, and it should be invisible because it is behind our camera. And we'll create another one. You can hold Alt Option, click and drag, so it will duplicate, and we'll put it one up front of the camera. Next, let's select 2 of those cubes they're creating, and we'll switch to material basic mirror. It's not what we needed. Okay, as we're creating mirror, you'll notice we have the reflection, 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 and the gone. So this is what's happening. Those rays that I said before when calculating, it's bounced 5 times and it disappear afterwards. So let's go modify some of these properties. Okay, we'll go on user settings. We're going to the trace reflections, and let's go put this to 10 on both of them, because one we have mass trace and other ones this is actually reflection. It's what we care. So, and if as we're doing this, now we need to render. This is not necessarily will affect your preview. We need to change preview mode. I want to recommend to change in preview mode, because as you're working, this take longer calculations and it will slow down some of your process. So don't mess kind of with previews, but with the render. Now we go and click on render. You'll notice we have it much more. See how many reflection we have it. We still lost some right there because it's need bounce 10 times and it's going back and forward. So in some case we have it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have those 10 steps as it's we put it in a reflection. So in this case, if you work with some of the rays and with the lighting, and you notice problem when some information is lost, it's probably some of those rays of reflections or other traces was dissipating. And this will lead to another problem. Sometimes people will create volumetric objects or translucent object, for example, like a wax or anything, and you'll notice you will have it, the grain kind of appear in this object. So for example, if we go and create some of the sphere, and we'll go modify this object, we'll go to translucency and the subray scattering, and you'll notice it's have it like a grain on a screen. And that's the reason, because those rays we bounced around and a kind of splitting, they stop calculating, and when they stop calculating at one point, the value is become to the 0. So you will have it black or gray points in this case, and it will look grainy. You can modify a couple ways by increasing quality, which is increased amount of calculations, and also you can increase anti-aliasing, which will stake those points and kind of blend them a little bit better together. So the multiple ways you can work with this. Well, this is about lighting, and kind of nice to know about arrays, because that will affect a lot of volumetrics object. Like for example, if you're going and create a spotlight, okay, And you notice you create spotlight and kind of not visible because it is already very bright. We can modify volume or a power of this, and depending on what model you have of the lighting, power can be modified as well. But you also have properties to increase, for example, volumetric lighting. So let's go ahead, enable volumetric lighting, and now you can preview here. Of course, we can go and increase value of our lights, make much stronger, so we can preview an visible light because it is volumetric. You'll notice some noise inside, and again, it's because those calculations. So we can go right click, edit volumetric properties, and here we have it light editing specifically for this object. So let's go look closer, and we'll be back to this volumetric settings about the grain. So we will go in light settings, and this editor will apply to most of the light sources with some limitations. We'll notice lens flare. So this is actually very powerful creation of the lens flare. We can enable, and it will just shrink when we have it in a camera right there. You can see it will have some lens effect. You can add rings, strikes, reflections. You can also modify different layers, how they all work together. For example, if we click on what type of lens, you'll notice 75, 35, 50 millimeters. If you click on a custom, that is become a lot of fun here because you see all of this collection of different type of the lens, which you can also add even your own new as you're creating, and you can select and stack those effects. So it's quite a bit powerful way you can create the rings, and you can create quite a bit complex. So it's create your own previews. You can load it, or you can also just preload already pre-made additional lens flare. I have it some in collections. If you join a Patreon, you should download it. A lot of collection of presets that done for 20 years. I don't know how long it was created, all of this. Okay, so right here we have it, our lens flare, if you want to use it. Next, you have a gel, and a gel is how the light is processing. So let's take this look on that. We have our main camera, and I want to look a little bit on the ground. We'll take our lights, bring a little bit up, and we can see right here lights as it creating cone. Of course, it's a little bit too powerful, so let's go drop down to about 50, so we can see slightly through the light. Okay, next we'll right click and going to the properties, or we can just anywhere. We can click on the edit properties. So as we're going in the gel, we have an option applied. It's almost like apply a special scheme over the lights, how distributed. We can open and preload model already predefined gels. So in some case, let's see if we can click right here, preload it, and you can see we have a lot of gels, and gels can be applied as simple as dots, and you can see instantly how the dots is creating. So it's kind of cool light gels. You can also apply the colorful gel. In some case, if you want to create, for example, lights going through the stained glass, you know, like in maybe in old churches, the lights coming from there, you can add and create very nice reflection, like simulate this lights passing through and reflecting. So you have a lot of options, and you notice right there you have a spherical gel, flat gel to preview also, and as they have some limitations how the gel applied. You'll notice it does not apply in 3-dimensional. It's apply like almost flat. You put it up front of the light, and that is a blocking. So if you want going to apply through all the light, then we need to work with our volumetric values. So let's go click on volumetric. You'll notice right there we have an intensity of volumetric lighting, how much it will be creating. We have it also on the quality, which is will additional calculate of this path of the ray we spoke before, and add some of the quality like anti-aliasing and more rays. But again, anytime when you add quality, you will increase your render time because need process more calculations. So you have it cast shadow in a volume. So if you create here, and you also have it smoke. The smoke is kind of interesting part because it actually will now apply those the gels only in 3-dimensional. So you can see right here we have one. Let's open, and we can create quite a bit more distortion, and it notes right there we applied those gels in our three-dimensional, which is very cool because we can create a rising smoke, we can create all sparks, you can create a lot of things. Like if you create a small teeny tiny dots, you can almost create like magic dust in the air without particle, because it will create much faster render. So this is going on your how much your imaginations will work with this, but that is a volumetric. And when I say it's a true volumetric, it's meaning we can take this and move over the camera, we can put inside the camera, and you will apply the stuff like you passing through the light. So this is big benefits when I says the would truly have it one of the best lighting system, because it is truly calculating as volumetric materials with a price of the time, of course, and the processing. Okay, you also can see we have cast smoke and dust in a beam. That is all based from the function, but it does create very interesting swirling depending on what you're using effect, and general I will recommend to use it for more natural look. Okay, let's go ahead, and next we'll look on the shadows. This says enable the shadows or shadow density when you create from the light, and you can manipulate. That is very good related when you need emphasize sometimes lighting, because we're creating in 3D. Some of the scenery, the global lighting like sun, maybe does not cast light in right way, or you want to modify something, so you can add additional lights and they will affect, but as well they will cast shadow from them way. So if you want to avoid additional shadows, because maybe your sun from left but you want a little bit highlight from the right, and now your shadows will crossing, so you can disable shadows. You can also enable shadow density, which is make them quite a bit softer or darker, and also you can enable in a which way they're calculating. These properties all same will apply to the sunlight, and some of using shadow map can be different when used with ecosystem. So be careful on this, because when you does, it's create a very soft and a realistic look. In this case, you want to play with shadow density. Well, let me show you what I was meaning till we say about this. For this, we're going to create some plant. Let's go create our tree, borderlight tree, and we'll just go select something like this maybe. I don't know, we'll just select some of the tree. I'll go make this a little bit bigger size. We'll take our main camera and we'll come closer to our, okay, right here we have it our plant, we have it our camera, and we can position just maybe a little bit on the side so we can preview. Notice as a shadow casting on a side. As said before, we can have it exactly the same properties we have it in our sun. Not every light options, light subject, light objects or emitters can have it exactly the same properties. They may change, but for the sun we have it similar things, and we look on the shadows. Notice shadow map is disabled by default here because the will effect a little bit different. So let's go and I will click render right now, and you'll notice as we preview, here's our shadow is created. And notice on the grain creating, because again, remember calculations of the rays, and that is will create a little bit problem with us. So next, what we can do, we can enable use shadow maps, and let's render right now. And notice shadow maps, it does not work very well with ecosystem. It's a disappear because it's try to calculate, but its other things also evolve. Well, let's switch to the ray traced shadow maps and try this. And ray traced does create shadows now, but you notice the more unrealistic because the shadow usually have it softer as they're going up down. So the light dissipation and top of the tree, it should be more blur and less intensive shadows versus as it's getting closer to the object. It because have it a global and ambient lighting, and all of this will be affecting. So to manage this, you can modify here. The easiest way probably to do is don't use it shadow maps in this case, but just using your shadow intensity. So let me show you what's happening. If we're going like 75 reduce, you'll notice our shadows will become much softer in light. So this is probably the better way. This will affect all shadows from every object, because it's a global settings. But this way you can manage and manipulate. Usually I do prefer a little bit better, like about maybe 97, 95. That will be good. You also have it a softness. Remember that grain, we can increase a little bit, or you can go and edit and increase here your traced shadows. You remember those rays, the bounced. So you can say what is your custom, your minimum, maximum quality threshold. So you can set on the quality on this. Of course, you can be very crazy. Okay, you can be very crazy in this case, and render, which should create a quite a bit nice, beautiful shadows. But notice how already take quite a bit longer time to create this, because it's calculation. And just imagine if you have a massive amount of the ecosystem plants or some other object and all interact, so that will become quite a bit intensive calculation. So be careful when you work with the settings. Well, okay, we'll go to edit here, we'll disable, okay, and it's probably easiest way if you work with just normal quality, because this is try to bounce a little bit better that way. Okay, so we'll look on this. Let's look on the next lighting, and this is again, it will be applied to our spotlight or to our sunlight. So we'll have the same properties here. And lighting, it's allowed us to manipulate the light distribution, or how much light changing based on a path. So we have it also options, linear, custom, quadric, and these how much light intensity changing. If you've done any photography or anything, you know the kind of rules when you put it flash photography and how far object, because light it's spreading, it's going in all directions, and intensity not linear change, intensity change in a quadric proportion. So for example, 1 here, 25.25 will be here, and so on going. And that is what happening. Linear, it's meaning with every step it just slightly drop down. Quadric, it's more natural look, more realistic look, but in many cases you want just simple control lights, maybe with easiest you can, because that quadric is not working, then you can use it linear light. Also you can enable variable colors, and this is will affect in a distance. So let's go ahead, we can go click preview, set colors. Let's go to enable volumetric lighting here on our lights, and we'll take and bring up front. And you can see right there we have it green. When we have it lights going up and down, it will change slightly color. See, now it's orange, depend on a distance. So in some cases we can create lights changing, going from the object, from the source of the lights to the directional. You can change color. So it's kind of cool in a way. You can adjust settings. You don't necessarily need to use it like colorful, like what we did here, rainbow. You can use any other things, but with a I'll give you practical effect. So for example, we can say green or red colors set here, like for example this one. Now let's go for example just this, just soft lights like this. Next we go in volumetric, we enable shadow smokes, and now from the light distribution we'll have it the aurora in the sky. So we can create a multiple different ways, real volumetric, and we can animate this and change as well, so it will create very interesting effect. You also have photometric settings and included IIS options, that is physical. This is will set nonlinear to physical. So if you want to create on specific lighting pattern, and we have already pre-made bunch of them, so you can select like halogen light distribution or this or some other one, so you can create a very realistic lighting distribution pattern based on this. Well, I'm going to disable all of this right now, go back to quadric, And of course, next we have it influence. And influence, it is what the light should highlight or not. You'll notice as you create, you have it all different type of the lightings using, and below with object, all object, none, only object mark, or object that excludes. So you can set the easiest way to do this, and you'll notice in some of my videos, for example, when I'm done, if I can create an object, for example, a street lamp, and sometimes, or maybe a screen, TV screen, and you want the TV screen is glowing or projections. It is sometimes can be difficult if you created object by itself produce lights, because it will overwhelm. But instead what you can do, okay, let me go ahead, take our sunlight a little bit down, so we'll have it create a little bit darker look here. And for example, we can have it create a cube. Okay, where's my camera? I know I'm away from the camera. There you go. So I have it right here, cube. Let's create second cube, and we'll just make it smaller and put on the middle. So right there you can see the cube. We could technically take this cube and convert to the light object. Almost anything, you can right click and you go right there, and you can say create or lighting. Okay, where's mine? Okay, I'm just looking on where we can create to the lighting, and you know what, we'll right click, going to convert to, and right here you have it area light. So if you do this, it will change this object. Now it's become just as normal lighting effect. The one thing I found when you create this, if you have any pictures or other things applied to this, it is does not look right, because the contrast rate and the luminosity as producing is not necessarily work. You can do both. You can also go and create to power source, okay, like right here you can create to the power. And as we're working on this cube, if we look, you don't really have it stop. You have it, yes, we can go and maybe add a gel to this, and the gel can be your screen, what information else on the screen you have it, so you can add this way, pop up, and you can see it does is creating, but it's not all the way. So what I like to do is, for example, create a different light source. Let's create one, and we'll just put it a little bit up front, like right here, so you can see it's illuminating, but it's not necessarily will illuminate our lights because it is a light source. Instead, let's undo this one. Oops. So we'll go to undo on a conversion, so we'll go back to our normal light. Okay, let's create a light source right here. We'll put it up front. I'll notice it is highlight everything. And then now when we're going to the properties of this light, we're going to the influence, and here only object mark below, and we can mark the cube 5. So now you'll notice it does not affect anything, affect only cube, which is kind of nice because we can modify, and because we are using our global radiosity, the lights and colors, everything from this will reflecting as well. So it's truly work more as a reflections, but same time it's work look more realistic as a screen. And also additional options that I like to do is click on inside materials of the specific, you'll go on effect and just increase luminosity. So in this case you will create even better effect object. So instead converting object to light and have it try to work with the gels or everything, just work like with normal object, and then you have it more flexibility and you have it more ability to manipulate with how it is producing and distributing light. Well, this is we'll look through all properties on those light sources, and they're kind of very fun to work with. Let's also look what else we have here, and I'm just going to select all of this, delete it, We'll take our sunlight and we'll just bring a little bit higher. Well, if we look on the lights, you'll notice light subject. We have a point light, which is just normal light going in every direction. We also have it our quadric, which is very similar to other light, but it is works slightly different because the calculations how it's work. We have it our spotlight, same linear spotlight, and we have it our quadric spotlight. Next, we have it our distance or directional light. So if we have this spotlight and we can go ahead and rotate and change the directions they're going, so we can kind of manipulate with them left, right. You can see the shadows, and you can also kind of going behind of them, behind the light. So it's meaning if I go and I select the lights this way, I put right there, and let's go to enable volumetric lighting for this. You kind of will see the lights. Okay, where's my camera? My camera is so far away. I'll bring right camera back. Okay, and you can see right here as the lights going. So with directional, it's imagine it's like a sun. It's far away object and it just shining once, and it does not have a cone or distribution of lights like an angle going. It's actually just shine far, far away. So let's go ahead right here. We can add, and it's look almost like a sun. And you can see you can adjust the angle positions for this, of course, for the lighting. And think in some cases like huge ambient light, some way you can create it. Then next, you have the properties to create a light panel, which is similar to just a one huge panel of producing lights. It's a very nice if you don't want the lights come from one point, and because how distribution, remember the lights like on quadric will lose intensity, so you will still see hot spot. With the panel, because it's light up all the way, all that size as you're selecting, you won't have it necessarily hot spotlight right there. You'll have it just like a panel producing lights in one directions. Okay, like right there. Let's bring closer. So it's a nice way to create. Perfect way if you ever done work with photography. This is almost like soft box you're creating. And of course, let's go pop up our lights so you can preview. And you can see there we have our wall, and it's kind of going direct in the same directions. Now let me show you interesting things. So notice right here we produce lights, but we can go in a negative. And as we're going in negative, it's actually create a darker point. In some case, if you want reduce lights, you can take a point, and I like to do sometimes, like right here you see the lights, but if I want to create darker, you can create like dark side. So almost you can say you can have it negative lighting, actually something gets taking out of the light, which cool, another way just to create. Well, okay, and we have another ones which was one of the latest. It's a light panels. Currently you won't see that much effect on this. They will better apply if you like place all the windows, if you do in like inside render in some apartment house, in some room, and you want light going properly through the window, you can put it a light panel in a window, and that will producing and control how much light coming from that area and all stuff. So this is specifically working for that reason. We will use it light panels in our other projects, and I use it before in my older videos, so you can view videos that already exist, or be sure just check new videos that will come up for the usage of the light panels. Well, and as you noticed before, we convert the cube in a light source. So technically any object inside the view or any materials inside the view can produce light, can create a specific lighting. So you can also create just a lighting strip of specific. Well, and some best way to do this, for example, you can create a sign. Just create, let's go select a different font. And I'm just going to select, if you have any font that maybe more like handwritten or any other font, it's fine. We'll go, let's add a little bit of the bevel on this. I just want to create them a little bit round and a little bit less on extrusions. Well, materials, I'll show you a little bit interesting things about materials, so we'll look on this. And now, for some reason, it's creating there. There's my 0 point. Okay, we'll go take camera, bring a little bit closer to the text we just created. Okay, right here. And let's just take this text and we'll copy. I usually hold Alt or Option on the Mac, click and drag, and it will create it. Well, we have it one set of the letters we created. So we can right click and we can say convert, and we'll convert to the area light. So this is one way to do it. We can increase, of course, our intensity, and we can select colors. And you can see it just create like area lights they're producing. Well, okay. The other ways we can create beside. Let's go to create one, and we'll just copy and drag it inside here. We can also by illuminating with other objects, for example, with the sun, but also we can create by using internal in the material. So if I open material here, and we're going, let's change to the constant light, well, constant color, and I'm going to select probably like red color. Okay, we'll go to effect, and I'm going to show before, if we take and we'll add luminosity, you can see now it's glowing. This way you can very nice create like neon signs, you know, like on the walls, because you can see they're producing outside everything. And when you do this, be sure you have it for the tubes. You probably want to create this a little bit shiny, kind of almost on a tube look stuff. Let's go right there maybe. So yeah, like right there, see, we can create kind of cool stuff. Well, anyway, you can play with this. Also effective for the tubes. If you have a translucency, a little bit add to the materials, that will affect as well. So you can create more interesting effect. There you go. Well, this is my problem. I start playing too much as soon when I start working with this. But you can see you can create a different materials. So you have it this way. You also can have material that you affecting by other lights. That's what we're looking. So for example, we have it right there, Geekatplay on the back. Let's go switch our materials, and we'll just take simple red material here, and we'll go add lighting, same what we did before. We're gonna have it area lighting, but I'm just for the simplicity will use it simple point lights. We'll put it far away, and we'll do crazy lighting on this, so you can see how much it is. And let's go select red color, and remember what we did. We're going options, influence, and in influence we'll say only objects that mark below, and we'll go just uncheck everything except one that we want to affect. Be sure we check ground, and now you can see we affecting the just only this light. Of course, we can go and modify intensity to make a little bit less, you know, overlay, but there you have it, a little bit more glowing lights on this. So this is a multiple ways we can create the lighting. Some objects, well, magic and other ones cannot necessarily have produced lighting, so it's because you don't want glowing clouds or other things. You have ways you can going around, like for example, it can distributed lights. You can create how lights going inside and illuminations inside the cloud, so you can do some of those to creating like perfect lighting, you know, like lighting strikes in the clouds. So you can do some with those effect as well. Okay, well, let's mine this one, and yeah, we'll just go select this, and let's go drag up front, and we'll put right there. So you can see we have all of these different type of the lightings we just created. Okay, so we spoke about some of the lighting, but we're not yet done, and I know it's maybe get longer, but I want to put it as much as possible for you so you kind of understand what's going on. We'll look on different lightings, we'll look on all of this, but this is just only one small things what we can create. Let's look on a little bit on atmosphere's property. And for this, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a spheres, and I'm going to put it one sphere closer, and we'll just put it second, third, and fourth, and maybe fifth right there somewhere. Okay, so we created subject. To understand next principle, let's bring something about how we render and what we see. On the screen, what we see representations of 3D world and 2-dimensional, because our screens, it's a 2D. You may have it 3D, but we still work just in 2D on your screen as representations. So somehow we need to identify in 2-dimensional, presenting 3-dimensional world. Our eyes in our lives, as we're working, as we're living around with experience, we build this understanding of the dimensions, what's going on here. And usually the objects that closer to us, we see the more saturated, higher contrast, we'll see more details on this. And usually it's maybe even brighter, but that will come back to this about lighting. But this is what usually happens. And as object moving away from our in a distance, because we live on Earth with atmospheres and everything, the particles in the air will affect the haze, they will affect contrast, and we don't see that much detailizations. So what is meaning right here, we can change. As well, our eyes, they can focus. So if we focus on one object, other one object will be blur or out of focus. This is not necessarily represent distance, but it will represent a focusing point, which is add additional to our 3-dimensional look on the world. And normal our focus is working because our two eyes have a parallax and a look on one. By the way, just let you know, this parallax work on about 10 meters because distance between your eyes, it's 50 millimeters or something, depend on different people. But parallax work about 10 meters, maybe 15 meters for some people. But after this, to the distance between eyes and to the subject, you don't see that much parallax, so you cannot distinguish in the stereoscopic. So then you fall back to the lighting, contrast, detailizations, saturations to those effects. Well, I'll speak about this. Let's look right here. We have this 5 balls was putting out. How we can determine distance between them? By, if you notice right here, we have it some haze and we have it lost in contrast and other things. So if we're going to atmosphere editor, in atmosphere editor, and we'll go to sky, fog, and haze, oops, right here, you'll notice we have the properties where we can modify sky intensity. So it's a colorizations, how it's fall out. We have it mean altitude on the sky, and a mean, it's not a middle point, it's a middle of concentrations. And usually, again, it will be about 1/3 in. So you have it, if you take your full distance and you divide on 3, it will be approximately first 1/3, it's where your middle mean will be, and after decay will happening less, and so 2/3 after to the top. So it's not a middle point, but it will be somewhere between 1/3 and half, so somewhere around there will be. And it's a change depending on all other settings. But you can see right here we have also decay with a mean about 8 kilometers. We also have it sky, fog, and haze, and this is what affecting particle. The haze, it is different particle in the air. It's going to be dust, dirt, it's going to be smoke, it's could be some other ones. Fog, it is usually a water driplets or water elements in the air, and Vue does a very good job about this. It's not a fake, because I know some other applications, they just put it white things and opacity changing and simulating fog this way. It's working many times, it's probably work not bad, but with the Vue it's actually add real volumetrical, so it's meaning you can go through them and changing as you're going, which kind of very cool. It's true of 3-dimensional. But right here you can see we can increase haze, which is general just absorptional lights and everything, because remember it's a particle. And if we increase the ground fog, you'll notice it will change, but it's more in distance. Well, we cannot see this much here, but it is will increase a little bit more inside distance on lower altitude. And you notice haze is 1.2 kilometers and fog is 200 meters. They work a little bit different on how they calculate it, so they're not exactly the same, but in general you can kind of manage with the height and weight to bring some down and one little bit more expand, so you can play around with those. You also can modify colors, and you notice how I said before, the haze, because it's a particle, some smoke particle, dust, everything is more like grayish neutral, and the fog is usually water driplets will have the refraction 1.33, which is create them look a little bit wider. So this would change. Actually, technically, it should be a little bit more in a bluish color because reflection of the sky. Anyway, we also have the global intensity, and glow intensity, it is intensity from the subject. So for example, if we have our sun, and let's take our sun and move a little bit closer so we can preview right there in the horizon, you can see we can add a glow, and it will glow from the sun, and it will affect of amount of particles. So the more particles you actually have, the calculations, the glow will change as well. So scattering, this is kind of, if you increase scattering more, you'll notice its light will go spread more kind of from the sun, and opposite if we're going to actually other ways, this scattering will change and more compress. So this is scattering directly of the lights from the source, what is happening. Well, and also how the light distributed inside the clouds or volumetric objects. This will go with clouds. Global settings, this is probably I use it the most. It's easiest way to represent the distance, because remember how it's saturations, contrast, we need to change this. If I take aerial perspective and just increase, you'll notice how much it will change. Look, if we start losing right here these details, if we go crazy at 10, you see how much they kind of start fogging. So this is easiest way to create this distance. When you create forest and you want to create depth look in a forest, this is one probably easiest way to do. The slider is not stopped. You can also just go and type inside, and as you do, you can see that will affect more. So they will take values. The slider allowed you to kind of usual normal preset, it's what you're doing, but if you want to increase more, you can do it. And you can create very dusty look in this case if you're going like if you Dune or some other one creating, so you can do this way. Quality boost by default set to 1. I will recommend for you to set at least to 0 when you render, because otherwise quality it will create the grain, create all this kind of dots inside. God rays, it's nice if you're creating lighting God rays, and I will show you how you can do this in an easy way, because it's already people done for us. So I'll show you starting points of this. And of course you have a shadow, casting shadows on the clouds or not, because maybe you have 2 clouds, maybe you have an object. Sometimes it's nice if you have a plane flying over a cloud and you want shadow casting of the plane on the clouds, then you want to enable this. But in most cases disable, because it will take quite a bit long time of render. And be sure to check my other videos about tips on a faster render, because some cases I have a test, and in one I spent like 18 hours versus 20 minutes. I'm not kidding, that much was different in just very simple things that you may do it and you don't even notice you're done, but because how the volumetric materials and other things working together, you can have these dramatic changes in your speed. Okay, also there's your sky, and many times just overall if you're creating like space look or something, you can take this ground density, drop down on the sky, which is create much less atmospheric effect. Mars, Moon, or Mars probably more because it's got very low atmosphere, so if you can create some of those atmospheric, less atmospheric effect, you can drop the density on the cloud. You can also go in and drop the sky mean, so its atmospheres become a little bit less dense. But notice if you do this, you want to work with decay. You want to drop decay at least less, because then you will have a more realistic look on the lighting. Like right here you can see it is almost like a black blue kind of, which is more realistic lights. Okay, when you play with these clouds, it's another thing, and it will be another video about clouds, because it's a huge animal by itself and a view, and they added new even clouds, in 2024. And of course we have our lighting, which will look a little bit before on some of the models, but let's focus on a couple things. Shadows moving, you remember when we look on the shadows, it's how they create. You can increase here. You have a dome overall lighting gain, so if you want to increase overall lighting ambient, you can increase here. Sky lighting, again at default, but if you mess around, right click reset, so you can go and modify this. You can play with all of these properties, and you can see how ambient affecting here. And if you mess up, just click reset color, it will go back to default colors. Quality, again, better, faster, you know what is going here. On our side we have all this lighting, different models, and we'll experiment with them more in the future. And below you have your global lighting adjustment. This is probably you work most with these elements. And you know what, let me go restore this stuff here so we can preview. And I'm just slightly adjusting. There you go. So what's happening at lighting, you have it simple brightness, darkness of the lighting, and that may change depend if you use a photometric or you use some other one lightings. You have a light balance come from the sun, or you want to do more ambient, more softer. So if you do rainy day, you probably want to go more in an ambient light. And as we're changing ambient light, notice light color, it's going from our sun, but ambient lighting we can modify here. And I prefer usually darker, less saturated, because it will create kind of more natural, a little bit warmer look to me. And you can see it's actually perform very nicely lighting here down on our subject. Okay, we have it also ambient lighting, uniform from every directions or directly from the sky. So more realistic, you probably want from the sky, but then your shadows sometimes get hotter, so you want to go and set ambient. You also have it applied to only sunlight here. You can modify to every light. You remember, you can have it more than one directional light. So instead, go and modify everything. You can combine all lightings, all light sources. You can modify them here as well. And you can also play to sky and clouds apply as well, because some of the lightings won't affect the clouds. But if you want to reflect lights from this on the clouds or something else like fire, for example, you create or something else, then you want to apply to the sky and clouds, so they will be affecting by those lights effect. Okay, and allowed to override photometric settings. So photometric settings, if you notice, you enable this is by default. So it's a system will calculate position of the light, all this stuff, and will try to create as most realistic as possible. So in these cases, you don't have ability to change of those settings, but you can have it options on the brighter or darker generic. Even if you want it, you can click allowed override, so you can customize them better. Of course, if you change from photometric to standard, you'll notice some changing will apply, but it's also your lighting models is changed quite a bit. You'll have it more saturations, you have it more contrast, how you're creating, and that is a great if you work. It's a more dramatic, kind of more harsh, I think, but also if you do some illustrations, I found out it's work a little bit better for the illustrations for me, kind of more not for the realistic. I was trying to find out words, but yeah, it's kind of this way. Okay, and of course the sun properties here, where you have it. The sun, you see how we take handles and we can move sun left or right. But sometimes you film outside and you want to bring real footage inside, or you want based render on this, or you just like how it was creating. You can use the real world settings where you have it. Choose your locations where you locate it. Time zone, you can set what time of the day. Oh, look, it's a dark, it's wrong time of the day. Yes, so we can go and put it maybe like in PM, AM. So we can modify a little bit right here. Let's go like 1 p.m. So noon about. And you can see right here the sun is set it on specific this location, which is kind of very nice, because sometimes I like to create 3D based on the reference photo, and this is one of the best ways. Okay, and of course below we have it our custom, where you can have it azimuth and pitch on the sun. You can also touch camera directions to the camera, so it's kind of going with the camera as well. And we also have it size of the sun. This is work very well. Well, let me switch to photometric now. And that is work very well when you want to play a little bit more with the sunsets, with the golden hours, because look on this, we can change size of the sun, and it's actually changed the size of visible sun right here. We can create it like Mercury look or some other moons or whatever you want. So bigger size, and you can see how large it was. We can change size of corona. It is glowing around here. So, and you can see we can have it big corona, small. So it's kind of nice. Right there you have it very soft, nice look. So it's embedding beautiful work with sunset when you have visible sun. And some of this like size of corona will also affect if sun on the side and you want leak a little bit more in a atmospheric, so it can create this way. So let me show you. Like for example, we'll just delete these spheres. And we have it a sun on the side. Okay, let's move just a little bit to the corner right here. And for example, you can see how it is smooth going line. But if we want to reduce this, we can reduce corona, reduce size of the sun a little bit, create smaller points. Okay. Also, we can go to, well, by the way, right here you can see visible of the sun, how much you want brightness. Well, we'll go a little bit less on the visible on the sun, but we want to go to sky, fog, and haze in this case. And remember, we'll go play with the glowing intensity. So we can take this a little bit down, decrease our overall glowing intensity. This will decrease some of the sun intensity here. As well, we'll take aerial perspective, drop down. That will reduce amount of the dust in the air. So we'll want to reduce some of the elements. And as well, play maybe a little bit more with the decay, ground fog. Let's pop up ground fog here. So you can see this will increase some of this amount, how much it will decay and how fast. And of course, the other things we can take and scattering, bring all the way up, bring closer to our sun. And you can see now we have it more warmer here. And as we're going, it's getting better gradient. So it's give it nice, smooth for us to going around there. Okay, we'll get a little bit more glowing. So right here, increase. Let's take our sky and we'll drop a little bit on a sky, and we'll drop a little bit on a sky ground density. This will also reduce some of distribution, because if you think amount of particle in air, we just reducing. So this is what's happening, it's reducing. So look what's happening if we go to like 57. Now we have it darker. We still have it glowing here, but other areas become a little bit more darker. And of course, as we're working with this, we want to drop a little bit more on our decay. And it's coming there. So let's go actually pop up this way. And we can, there you go. Look how beautiful it is. Other things, if you want intensify, you want to change sky color, don't hesitate too much, because you can always change back if you need it. And usually I just want a little bit. If we change just slightly even, you can see how it is already increasing. Desaturations of the color, it's work very well, but it is will create a little bit more, give you in a kind of yellowish look, or in this case will be more purplish. But you can see how we change gradient already from original, where sky wasn't no gradient. Now we have a nice sunset, and we can change and increase amount of this. Remember, everything you can change. You can change even the haze color to create a little bit more bluish effect. So we can pop up and increase one right there. See how it's going nice, soft. If you want to go with pastel, if you want to go with more saturations, of course you can apply more saturations. Let's go to increase just for fun. Increase fog, and this line, as we're increasing, you can see right there, see how it's changed just slightly on a bottom, increasing. So you can change and modify this as well. Okay, overall, this is what we work with the lighting. We'll look on some properties. It's much more to this. There some other elements may affect, but they're less useful, and mostly they will related to some specific objects. Example, materials. Right here we have it, our sphere. And remember, we'll look on materials and we'll look on some luminosity. You also have it on glowing material. And if we create a glowing material in here, let's go click OK. In some cases, it will create like aura around. So for example, we have it right here, intensity. Let's increase intensity, radius. And you can see it is glowing, and we can go behind or up front. So if we click up front, we should have it our object glowing. So let's go just select, and sometimes glowing object, it's a little bit older, wasn't updated. So if you try to do in photometric, it's not always will work. Okay, right here, effect, glowing, and we set, and you can see it does not necessarily work in this way. So if we switch our atmosphere to atmosphere editor, let's go to the standard spectral automatic, you'll notice it will take a little bit time to render, and it will create, it's kind of take the glow and overlay over our object. You can see right here it's kind of glowing behind the object slightly. So let's go ahead and modify some of this material, and we can also pop up a little bit more. Let's go behind this, and I'll just go crazy. Yes, very crazy. Okay, let's go click OK. It's want to render instantly because it's need processing, and it will apply after. I'm not necessarily happy how that worked from early models, because it's kind of not realistically glowing object. So you can create different ways by, for example, make object glowing by itself, add luminosity to this, and maybe add some lighting shining on this. So it's have different ways you can actually to do this. But just another ways you can create glow, and you can see it's try to create glow around, and it's not creating by luminance. It does not calculating lighting. It's just taking this like soft light or some filter, if you do in Photoshop, overlay over and just make this areas brighter. So it's work a little bit different that way. And by the way, when you work with glowing and you decide to switch back to photometric, sometimes lighting can be messed up and create quite a bit weird look as you're going forward with this. Well, the other things what I want to mention, and just again it's mentioned because it require its own video on this, it is MPR or non photorealistic render. So if we right click, we can go and access effect, and you can see right here you can create all these different options. You can modify thickness like a cartoon, outline, blueprint. You can create all of this, which is also have some their own lighting small manipulations with this, but it's used on a very specific cases or some stylizations, maybe if you do cartoon animations or other things. So that is, you can do a lot of stuff here. And just let you know, it is a very required video by itself just on that, but it is affecting also a little bit of the lighting. So this is just the beginning. It's way more to this. Lights is very heavily integrated, light distributions, for example, with the clouds and everything. Well, one more thing before we run out, because I promised you about God rays and everything and how you taste. If you go to atmosphere and you go to load atmosphere, you'll notice right here, okay, let me put this on the middle of the screen, you have a huge collections of atmospheres. Personally, I have thousands of different atmospheres that I created and saved, literally thousands different one in presets, because it's kind of very nice, just an easy and fast way. Instead experiment, you want to have it some like starting point, and from there you want to expand. For example, right here you can see it's have a lot of effects, God rays. So you can just go click, yes, update my camera, let's update everything, and there you go. Now you have it God rays. You can see the God rays, it's those lights going through the cloud. They're actually very simple rules. One, you need to have volumetric. Next, cloud need to be heavy density with some opening. Lights need to be stay in volumetric lighting. And the best for them, if they're going up front of the camera, so they shine into the camera, it's the best way to preview the God rays. And of course, if you go to atmosphere editor, you'll notice right here, God rays is enabled checkbox. So it's allowed to calculate. A little bit hard with God rays to work. It's required quite a bit experimental and look inside how set up them. But I would recommend for you just go look by example, because this is probably the best way you can learn. And as we look right here, you can have it other ones. You have it animated, which is quite a bit older atmospheres, but they're like from first version. Like you notice they will using old style of the clouds. You also have it all as different. Spectral lighting, just effect again. It's a nice thing to point to start. You have it additional all the seasonal photometric lighting. So you have it all of this with the sunlight, stars, and so you can go over all of these effect, and some you can creating quite a bit unusual. Again, be sure you check on Patreon, because I have very interesting cloud and sky collections I create over in the year for my all different type of projects. But again, there you go, you can create, update, and you can see right here you have it glowing in clouds and other things, so you can have it very fun, very easy way to do. This is another way to study on the lights and study by the example. Well, thank you for watching, and have a nice time. See you next time.